markets may have crossed 50,000 and yes, there's buoyancy, but this buoyancy or this liquidity, I mean, while India may not have gone ahead and given the kind of stimulus the world has seen, and yet we have seen that there is a rebound. The liquidity surge that you see globally, and that's been driving even the Indian markets. I mean, you saw last year close to about $23 billion worth of FII net inflow inside the country. Now, this is something that the government should take advantage of. And as PK rightly said, we need to step on the divestment path. I mean, there has to be a clear roadmap, and we cannot have a situation wherein we keep on kicking, for various reasons, kicking the can down the road, saying that we just push it. So classic case is BPCL. It's not happened.
Absolutely.
What the market is waiting for
ahead of the budget, but
is how you handle this part.
But we're looking market while we're talking about the market, while strengthening the invisible hand of the markets is key in this budget. The finance minister also has to be wary about dampening market sentiments. There is worry about the application of COVID cess. If that is 2 or 4% on big taxpayers, that could be a dampener on market spirits. And then also, of course, markets want everything perfect. They want the fiscal deficit perfect. They want finances to be perfect. They want expenditure to be perfect. And that's not possible. So is it likely to cause panic if Nirmala Sitharaman fails in the balancing act between fiscal prudence and expenditure and increases the fiscal deficit a little too much and over-subsidizes? Amit is with me right now. Amit Jain is CEO and founder of Girnar Software, joining us as a representative of India Inc. What is corporate India looking for? What are you looking for? Good morning, Amit.
So, hi, Arnab. We represent Startup World. I run Car Dekho Girnar Software is the company name. Car Dekho is a more popular name. We represent this panel from a startup perspective. And we as Startup World are definitely looking for more ease of doing business, getting all the processes digitized, budget allocating a decent amount on digitization of the processes. We suffer a lot in terms of a lot of government regulations, and startups really are not yet there to follow all the compliances of all the big companies. So I think the early stage startups need their help. I am hoping that something of that nature on startup gets around. We as Startup World are one of the largest growing job creators in the country. And I would look upon us as, creating this Atmanirbhar Bharat that Modi ji always speaks about. We're looking forward to some tax rebates. Working capital is always an issue with startups, right? If there's something that, budget can talk about how our working capital and advanced tax payments can be reduced for startups. We get invoices later in earlier. So now we're a much large company, but in earlier years, I remember still, struggling with arranging capital to pay, and startups don't even get loans from banks, being run in negative, right? So there are working capital line issues all the time for startups. I'm looking forward to certainly more reformative here. And fintech side, I think there's a lot to be done, frankly, on how we as startups can go into each micro niche and create a much bigger, opportunity for India, which creates more jobs. Finally, I think it's all about creating more jobs as we go about doing the startup world. So I'm looking forward to something very revolutionary here or from a startup perspective, Arnab.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck to you. It's going to be a very, very interesting day. And viewers, please remember, I'll keep telling you about a few insights. Will the NSE that clocked its worst budget day returns in 2020 change course this year? Remember, NSE Nifty 50 index clocked its worst budget day returns in at least 11 years in the budget last year. Will this be a turnaround from last year's performance? Okay, let's go across to Jim Rogers. Jim Rogers, the prophet of doom for the country, who I beat back every budget morning. Good morning, Jim. How are you? Jim is an American businessman, investor, and author. How are you, Jim?
Now take advantage of it and privatize a lot of the Indian economy. The world will be better off. India will be better off if she privatizes and then starts reducing the debt. But as a result of this show, I'm going to start looking more for opportunities in tourism and agriculture. You asked what would bring me back into India. Maybe I will find some tourism, some agricultural opportunities. Who knows? I don't like the huge debt, but the market, of course, loves it. If you give me trillions of rupees, I'll show you a very good time.
Jim, you are comparing the debt with which countries? Are you comparing India's debt with Japan? Are you comparing India's debt with the United Kingdom? Are you comparing India's debt with Germany?
I've already
if you are
said
not
that the
investing, where would
U.S.
the
is
money come from?
horrible. I'm
6
American
crore
citizen. I
households
don't
given
like all the
Good
debt.
point, Abhishek.
I've written books
Superb.
about the Japanese debt. The
Superb,
Japanese
Abhishek.
debt is terrible.
Where
Yes.
does the money
That does
come
not
from?
mean
Why
it's
are you
good.
turning a fiscal
Does
hawk
that
only
mean
on
India
India?
should go
Are
and
you
do bad
reflecting
things
the
because
bias
Japan
of the
does?
credit
Because
rating?
Thank you,
America
Abhishek.
does?
Thank you,
No.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Got it. I'd put that forward. Gaurav Bhatia is with here. You know, Mr. Jim Rogers, I like you. But the problem is that you have a big problem in understanding figures. You don't understand the figures. You must look at India's FDI. Look at the jump in November 1990. It grew by a whopping 81%. Which country does that? To 10.5 billion as against 5.6 billion in November 2019. The problem is you're blind to the positive figures. How can you not be bullish about the India story? Which country gives you these figures? You're biased. The problem is your permanent bias.
I know the figures. I know that India's debt is very, very high now compared to GDP. It's good, as I say. Give me a lot of money and you'll have a good time. Is it good for young Indians? No, it's not good for young Indians.
I'd like Gaurav Bhatia to come in. Jim Rogers, Gaurav Bhatia, the national spokesperson of the BJP, is joining this panel. I think, Jim, you are being blind. Our growth is pegged at 11% for the fiscal year 2021-2022. Hello, please wake up and smell the coffee. This is the highest since our independence in 1947. But I hand it over to Gaurav Bhatia because we here in India are very, very positive and bullish about the next 1 year. Gaurav, Jim Rogers is joining us from Singapore. What would you say to him? He's very, very cynical about India always. Unnecessarily so.
A very good morning to all of the viewers, to you and all the panelists. And I must say that like any other Indian, even I have started the day with a lot of positivity. But to my friend Jim Rogers, I would like to only say, Mr. Jim, there is always a difference between the bookish theoretical knowledge and the practical ground situation. And I must tell you one number which is very heartening, and for you also it would be very heartening. The IMF has said that the growth of our country would be pegged at 11.5% for the next year. So what does it show? That India is a very robust economy. We have the dynamic leadership of Narendra Modi ji, coupled with the fact with an able finance minister like Nirmala Sitharaman ji. And I must tell you that the growth story of India is being replicated by other countries that are not even managing a 5 or a 6% growth rate. But having said that, let me come to some other important numbers. Arnab, definitely there are going to be challenges because we all know the pandemic is still there. We are fighting the pandemic, but how well are we fighting is the question. And we are doing a great job at ensuring that even the poorest of the poor has means to livelihood, he has opportunities, and the focus definitely would be the key areas like infrastructure, farmers, creating more jobs, and as a government, it is our priority to not just talk about numbers, but to create a positive ecosystem.
Absolutely, Gaurav, our fundamentals are solid. Our fundamentals are solid. Our projected growth is 11%. MR, I think we need to counter Jim because Jim doesn't understand the concept of a V-shaped recovery, you see. He's living in a flat economy world. The V-shaped recovery, why does it happen? We need to tell him because of resurgence, high-frequency indicators, power demand, rail freight, e-way bills, GST collection, steel collection. That's what leads to economic growth. Ashish Wakankar wants to have a go at Jim. Who goes first, MR or Ashish?
Jim, you must understand that
I would just like to add
which is now
who goes first?
And we are going to grow at 11%. But the most important thing, Jim, is that our fundamentals based on savings, the domestic savings, which is around 30%,
of course things are going to be good if you spend all this money.
And that will take care of any bumpy ride. And that comes from a civilizational perspective. Sir, you don't worry about the grandchildren. We will take care of your grandchildren also. We have got the capacity to take care of your grandchildren. Don't worry about it. India has got the capacity. And now we are one of those where you may say that we have got government deficits. But there is no national deficit. Please
Brilliant.
understand. We have to focus more on whether the country is running at a gross level at a deficit. We are not a country of deficits. We are a country of surplus. We are a country with surplus savings. And that is what propels India. You must understand that we have got a huge domestic demand. We have got a huge population which is below 50, and that is propelling India's demand. We have certain problems, but we have got the political sagacity to take care of all these things. We are not like Greece or Turkey or Japan or Germany
Absolutely.
or even Britain or America, that where a small fiscal deficit will create turmoil around the globe. We are a country where the household savings is one of the highest. You must understand, we are not a beggar nation. We are a nation which is self-dependent.
Fantastic rebut to Jim Rogers by M.R. Venkatesh from there. M.R. is in an aggressive place today, and rightly so. Rightly so. And Jim doesn't know the answers anymore.
About to collapse. What is wrong with the banking system in India if everything is so great?
Who says our banking system is about to collapse? Ashish, you need to give it back on this one. I mean, our economy is contracted by 23% in the June quarter, but it recovered to shrink by a narrow 7.5% in the September quarter. You don't see the numbers, Ashish.
See, on the point of India's high debt levels, I just would like to make one point over here, that India's debt to GDP ratio compared to the OECD countries or compared to the BRICS world is significantly lower. I would look at the number over here, and that is the growth number to take care of the debt to GDP sustainability, rather than getting fixated with the rising debt. Rather than saying that, we're going to, I mean, the government has been overly conservative and rightly so, maybe in terms of spending or giving stimulus when the supply side was under constraint. But now we have a situation where the government's hands are free, the supply is, because of opening up, is coming back. And at such a time, the entire focus should be whether this budget is going to harp on, just like the economic survey. It's a wonderful document, and I would encourage everybody outside of India to spend some time reading the economic survey. Fantastic document, hard work that has gone over there. And it clearly goes on to say the government needs to not focus on these international rating agencies with all these surveys which have their own bias towards India for somewhat. I think
if you were to even look at the economic survey, Ashish, if you were to look at the economic survey, the big figure is the GST collections.
Just 10 more seconds, Arnab. I'll just complete
the GST collections have crossed 1 lakh crore mark.
Just 10 more seconds. I want to bring over
consecutively for the last 3 months.
The growth itself will pay for the debt rather than getting fixated on India's debt. What we need to focus is, will the government present a budget which is pro-growth? Will the government be careful on ensuring that the fiscal deficit this year is higher rather than being too conservative? I think this government has been conservative. It has held them well during the pandemic, but now things have opened up. Now you have vaccine in place. Now
Jim concedes defeat at this point.
Today we have Mumbai suburban locals which have been opened. Will the government now
Jim concedes defeat at this point.
All engines, firing all engines is
Let me enjoy this one second. Jim concedes defeat at this point.
Rather than being fixated. And the last point, just the last point I want to make is,
fantastic.
Why is it that only in the case of India we look at the debt to GDP number? What about the BRICS? What about the OECD? And what about
quicker, Ashish, come on now. We need to move faster. 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 You concede defeat, and then I move on, Jim.
Down in the second quarter, and the third quarter, and everybody's having a big revival. Wonderful for India. Don't you worry about the future instead of the present?
Well, I think. Well, the future, you need to look right at the present and look at the consumer price index. It has eased to 4.5%. You're bad with numbers. Retail inflation within the range of 4% with a margin of 2% on either side. That's good. GST collections, 1.2 lakh crore in January. That's fantastic. Please look at the sunny side.